Hey everyone, welcome back. For those of you who are new here, my name is Brittany. I'm a health coach and nutritionist, and my channel is all about helping you to create delicious, low FODMAP meals to improve your digestive health. If you're into it, subscribe for more low FODMAP recipe tutorials, as well as my tips and tricks for managing IBS and living a low FODMAP lifestyle. Okay, so today we are going to be making mushroom risotto. Now, I know what you're thinking. Do I know what you're thinking? I thought I couldn't have mushrooms on the low FODMAP diet. You mostly can't. There is one type of mushroom that you can have, which is an oyster mushroom, which is what we're going to be using today. They are a little bit harder to find in the grocery store, and they are a little bit expensive, but if you miss mushrooms, it's totally worth it. So we're gonna be using this in a risotto today, along with leek, thyme, a little bit of Fody chicken soup base, of course, and butter and Parmesan. Risotto is great because it really only requires like 4 ingredients, like butter, cheese, and the risotto rice, and then like chicken stock. So I do have a couple of things that I like to do to like get it's kind of like a cheater stock because I'm not like boiling it all day. Like you could use bone broth in this and I feel like that would be super good, but I don't have any at the moment. So I'll show you how I whip this up when I don't have any bone broth in the fridge and I'm just trying to like whip it up really quick. So stay tuned. Okay, we're gonna start by cutting up our mushrooms. I like to cut them in pretty small pieces because we are gonna put them in the risotto. I don't feel like you want like a huge honkin' mushroom in there. But I am gonna leave them on a little bit of the bigger side. So I'm just slicing them like this. When you have multiple ones that are stuck together like this, I kind of like to get them individual and then cut them. So I've actually seen these little oyster mushroom growing kits on Amazon, and I really wanna get one and try it, but it's just so hot here. I don't know like if they'll actually grow. Because you have to keep them in like 65-degree temperature. So I mean, we might be able to do it during the winter, but like it's February and it's like 80 degrees today. So I don't think that's gonna work. But if you live in a colder climate, that might be something that you want to look into. So the low FODMAP serving for oyster mushrooms is 1 cup, which is gonna be about this whole package. But our risotto is gonna serve 4, so we are well within the low FODMAP limits. Okay. Now for this leek, I'm just gonna trim off these, ugh, gross. Yeah, you wanna make sure you wash your leek really well. Leeks are basically giant green onions. So just like green onions, we're only gonna use the green parts. I like using these in dishes I like cooking them with these because I feel like they're a little bit more hearty and they keep their shape and their texture a little bit better. Green onions I typically like to put in at the end of recipes. Okay, and this is about 2/3 of a cup, which is the low FODMAP serving for leek. All right guys, let's head over to the stove and cook up our broth. All right guys, I have a medium saucepan here that I'm heating up over high heat. And we're first going to make our stock for the risotto. Here we're going to add a tablespoon of butter, a tablespoon of garlic oil. If you wanted to keep this one dairy-free, I suppose you could use coconut oil, but I would recommend using beef or pork tallow instead, maybe even duck fat. My sister doesn't eat dairy, so when I made this for her recently, I used pork belly and just used the rendered pork fat from that. And she said it was the most amazing thing she's ever tasted. Okay, we're just gonna add our mushrooms and half a teaspoon of salt. Throw in a little pepper too. Maybe like 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so now we're just gonna let these cook down. Okay, our mushrooms have been cooking down for about 5 minutes. You see this amazing golden color? That's exactly what we want. This is going to help the mushrooms develop flavor, and it's also going to help it to retain a nice texture after we make stock with them. Okay, so now we're just going to add our leeks. We're also going to add some thyme. You could use dried thyme, but I just happen to have this in the fridge. So that was about 6 sprigs of thyme. And now that those leeks have cooked down a little bit, we're gonna add 6 cups of water. And lastly, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of Fody chicken soup base, which is absolutely necessary if you want to make a good tasting broth or stock fast. This is really gonna help you like cheat and like get there quicker. Okay, now we're gonna throw the lid on this and bring it up to a boil, then reduce the heat and let it simmer for about 20-30 minutes. All right, guys, our stock has been simmering for about 20 minutes. So now we're just gonna move this to the back burner and we're gonna keep it over low heat. The trick with risotto is that you want to keep this pretty warm so that when you add it to here, it's not gonna cool it down. It's just gonna continue to cook. So we're gonna start this pan on medium-high heat and we're gonna start with 2 tablespoons of butter. We're also gonna add 2 tablespoons of garlic oil. Now I know this seems like a lot of butter and oil, but that's basically what risotto is. Okay, now we're gonna add a cup of Arborio rice, which is the rice that you use for risotto. You can see it's a very short grained rice and it's also very starchy. And we want the starch because that's what's going to turn the rice into risotto. So don't rinse it. See how it just absorbs all of that flavor? So this part is a little bit similar to when we make Spanish rice, how we start with oil in the pan and then add the rice and cook it until it's golden. We're just gonna cook this until it's a bit translucent and the starches start to release. Okay, you see how it's starting to get a little bit frothy and how all of that moisture is coming out of the rice now? That's exactly what we want. Okay, now we're going to start to add our stock. We're just gonna add 1 ladle at a time. And we're just gonna keep stirring it until it evaporates. Risotto is super easy, but it is time and labor intensive. So it really is a labor of love. You also wanna make sure that you keep stirring the risotto because that stirring motion is what's going to help the rice to release its starches. See how the mushrooms still have such a nice color? Love it. And with the leeks, it actually turns the risotto a little bit green, but I don't mind. All right, I think this is pretty much done. Yep. Okay, so now we're gonna turn off the heat. We're gonna finish it off with 1 more tablespoon of butter. And we're going to add 1.5 ounces of Parmesan cheese. Let that all combine together and give it 1 last taste for salt, but I doubt you'll need to add any salt because you have all the salt from the broth that is concentrated now in the risotto, along with the salted butter. Oh my God, so good. Okay, let's head over to the counter and plate this up. All right, let's plate this up. It has like cheese strings, which is amazing because we didn't even put that much cheese in it. Okay. Okay, and we're gonna top it off with a little bit of thyme. All right, guys, here we have our low FODMAP mushroom risotto. Let's give it a try. Oh my God. There's something magical that happens when you mix fat and starch and heat. Like, it's just amazing. I can't even tell you guys how much I've missed mushrooms. Like, really. So if you miss mushrooms, I'm telling you, you gotta try this. I'm also surprised at just how creamy and cheesy this is, even though we didn't add very much cheese. And I know I mentioned earlier that, you know, butter and cheese is like the main ingredients in this dish, but I have made a dairy-free version of this. I used pork belly and pork fat instead of butter. I still used garlic oil, and then I just skipped the cheese, and it was still super creamy and delicious. But you could add a little bit of nutritional yeast too if you wanted to do that. I haven't tried it, but I think it would be good. The other thing I love about this dish is that it's so rich and satisfying, even though it has no meat in it. So if you're trying to eat less meat, this is a way to feel like you're not just eating salad, you know? It would also go perfect as a side dish for like steak or pot roast. And honestly, whatever you put in your broth is what your risotto is gonna taste like. So feel free to have fun with it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next week.